Welcome to episode 152 of the Grip Strip Podcast, sports cars, football, and motorsports worldwide. The edition of the Grip Strip Podcast as we were watching the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Dallas Cowgirls battle to see who's going to go to Santa Clara this coming weekend for the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm here with a guy who in the first half of the Jacksonville LA Chargers game might have started drinking some hard stuff, but in the second half, Trevor Lawrence came back to being Trevor Lawrence, and the LA Chargers somehow or another blew a 27-point lead and basically had no answers because Trevor Lawrence and then that defense, of course, showed up. I'm glad that he's alive. He's my co-host. He's my buddy. He's Josh Fine. What's going on, man?
And doing great, Phil. Yeah, what a great weekend to watch football. Jacksonville Jaguars back in the playoffs, and they won their playoff game this past weekend, like you said, against the LA Chargers. And I wasn't, that drunk. I had a couple of drinks like before the game, but I hadn't really had anything in that first half. But yeah, it was a terrible first half of football on Saturday night. Trevor Lawrence, first pass gets tipped and intercepted and like, oh no, what's happening? And then 3 picks later, and I'm like, all right, I'm ready to go home. And just a terrible half of football that first half, but they got back in the game. At the very end of the half, got a touchdown and everything, and went from there. And the Jaguars managed to pull off the comeback, and the third largest comeback in NFL history in the playoffs, and I think the biggest comeback in postseason or regular season for Jacksonville ever. So yeah, just a incredible comeback, and I'm glad I got to see that in person. My brother was with me and everything, and yeah, he was bearing his face in his seat at the end of the game. So just it was going to be one way or the other there, but I'm glad I was on the good side of it. So glad to see that, and looking forward to seeing how they play against the Chiefs, and how they will play just against the number one team in the NFL. I think the Kansas City Chiefs. And a couple years ago in college, they were saying we want Bama. Well, I'm saying we want Mahomes. So give me all the smoke there. So I'm ready.
All right. So there's one person that's part of the Duval Nation going and calling out Kermit the Frog, and that is my co-host and Jacksonville diehard Josh Fine. The 49ers went out there and had a struggle in the first half. We'll get into this. We got a little ahead of it. We'll get into all the events of Super Wild Card Weekend. Of course, there's one game going on right now, so we'll probably have some random comments here and there from either of us. Coaching stuff going on, but the Niners had a rough first half. Brock Purdy looked like a rookie for the first time. He looked kind of human. And then in the second half, the light switch went, the lights turned on, and defense, Charles Omenihu made a huge play on Geno Smith's strip sack. Bosa goes and picks up that fumble. And from then on, it was Niners. 25 unanswered points, and the game was over by that point, more or less, sending that dipshit Pete Carroll home and all those bandwagon fans in Seattle. And now they are waiting on who wins this game on Monday night. So we'll get into all that. We'll also talk about the big news from last week, which is Kevin Harvick will be running his final season in the Cup Series, and what will come of that. I mean, the legacy question, what is he going to do next? It sounds like he's just going to be with his kids since they're going jet setting all over the world, go-karting. And another big piece, who's going to take over for Kevin Harvick in the 4 car and what happens with Rodney Childers, who has been that combination's the longest tenured combination in the Cup Series, and they won one championship. Probably should have more than that. They've won so many races together. Will he decide to go and bail as well? Jimmie Johnson went on, I think, Good Morning America, or today actually, and went and said that the new name for what was PettyGMS will be Legacy Motor Club, and he'll be driving the number 84 in the limited races this year. So we'll talk about that. And amongst other drivers that will be in an open car, including Jimmie Johnson, will be more than likely Travis Pastrana running for 2311, trying to make his first career Cup start in the Daytona 500. Of course, there's other news announcements across all three series. We will review the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship from last year because it's a good time to do it since the Roar is coming up this weekend, and the Rolex 24 is only, what is it? The qualifying will be 10 days from now, or start 10 days from now on my birthday, and they'll have further qualifying on the Friday, and then Saturday the 28th will be the Rolex 24, so we'll preview that next week, of course. We'll review this last season and who did what. Chili Bowl happened. Oh, man, he threw a pick. Are you for real? Come on. Chili Bowl, which took place at 1:30 in the morning because of the typical issues with them in prepping the racetrack. But Logan Seavey gets the win for Kevin Swindell, a former 3-time winner of the Chili Bowl, or 4-time winner of the Chili Bowl. And it is a big deal for him since his injuries. We'll get in a Dakar rally. Nasser Al-Attiyah wins again, but Sebastian Loeb won the last 6 stages of the race, which is insane. We'll talk about Mexico City Formula E to start the season. Jake Dennis for Andretti, Avalanche Andretti, gets the win. Porsche Power Unit, and first race with them at Porsche Power Units, and they get that victory. We'll preview Rally Monte Carlo and the Roar before the 24. Josh's Sim segment, we'll talk about all things iRacing, but there's also the controversy of the 24 hours of virtual Le Mans that took place last weekend, and a certain Formula One world champion not being very happy about what happened there before we close the deal. So yeah, Josh got to attend the Jaguars game with his brother. His brother's a Chargers fan, and as you mentioned last week, the first half was definitely a dumpster fire for the Jaguars and for Trevor Lawrence. 5 turnovers in the first half. They lost a turnover battle 5-0. And, Trevor Lawrence ended up having, 3 picks, all to Asante Samuel. And, he fumbled the ball there too. And I don't know if all 5 were in the first. I know 4 was in the first half.
Yeah, they were all in the first half.
Oh, they were all in the first half. So you wouldn't think that there's all the percentages were saying that the Chargers are going to win this, and Herbert did his thing in the first half and didn't. They were doing good work. Him and Keenan Allen, and even they didn't have Mike Williams, which probably hurt them. They didn't seem to have the run working enough with Austin Eckler, who I think won the rushing. Didn't he win the rushing title? Or no, Nick Chubb won the rushing title. But inexplicably, but typical Chargers, typical Brandon Staley, an implosion took place. But to be honest, Trevor Lawrence, it looked like it's like the first half was year 1 of his career with Urban Meyer, and the second half was Doug Peterson. And Doug Peterson has made a name for himself largely in the playoffs. From 6 years ago when he won the Super Bowl with Philly. famously, and other big wins he's had with the following year with BD Nick Foles and et cetera, et cetera. So in the end, I mean, you already talked about it a little bit, but did you really think that Trevor Lawrence was going to go back out there in the second half and throw 4 touchdowns? Or he had 4, yeah, he had 4. He was going to throw 4 touchdowns to get you all back in the game. ETN had the big run to basically lock the game up, and that defense really locked down there and made big plays. And Justin Herbert was not really a factor in the second half.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of things to take away from that game and how things played out. I mean, first of all, like you said, 5 turnovers all occurring in the first half. Trevor threw 4 picks. 3 of them went to Asante Samuel Jr. And I forgot who the fourth one was to. Then Jamal Agnew well, the ball, it was a punt, and it bounced off of a Jaguar, the back or helmet or something off of a Jaguars special teamer, and then Jamal Agnew couldn't field the punt, and then he muffed it essentially, and Chargers recovered it on the 5 yard line. And I think at that point, I thought the game was over because I thought if they gave up a touchdown there, uh, when they're already down 24-0, and they just recorded their 5th turnover of the game, and Chargers have it on on their 5 yard line, then they would easily just punch it in and go up 31-0, and that'd be the end of it. But no, they held them to a field goal there, which I think that was critical. And then they also held Chargers to 3 and out earlier. Like I think literally before that punt happened, they had actually held them to a 3 and out after Trevor had just thrown another interception to his last one to Asante Samuel Jr. And right there, I thought the game was over, but they held him to a field goal, like I just said, and then Trevor and the Jags came out and got a touchdown right before the end of the half, which was critical. They needed to do that to get at least one score on the board before halftime to make it a 20-point lead, and then came out in the third quarter and. It was a completely different game somehow, and even though they didn't turn over or force a turnover from the Chargers, they were able to keep them from, scoring any touchdowns. And then we got one field goal. The Chargers missed a field goal, and then the other times they either forced a punt, or first, they just basically forced punts or go 3 and out, whatever. So, that was really important to get back into that game, and they were able to do that. So yeah, it just I can't even believe how it even happened like that. It only like how they were able to quickly score like that and get back into the game. I mean, it happened so fast, but then it was almost just like they just had the ability to go out and score points throughout the second half, and just a really incredible comeback. And once the Chargers missed their field goal, I knew there was a strong possibility that the Jaguars would be able to um, go out and get another touchdown, make the game closer. They missed on a 2-point conversion on one of the touchdowns, but I was like, well, I'd rather it adds an extra possession, but I'd be okay with that, if it meant that they'd have the ball last, I guess. And they ended up having the ball last, and it was a great call by Doug Peterson on 4th and 1, inside of 2 minutes. Uh, the inside of 2 minutes for the fourth quarter, down by 2 points, and they went with the wing T formation, brought us back to 1950. And Trevor Lawrence handed off to ETN, and they basically, it was basically similar to how they did 4th and 1 in LA. If you remember that play, they were up 16-10 in LA, and they had a 4th and 1, and they ran with 13 personnel. They had 3 tight ends, 1 wide receiver, and they were able to create a wall for James Robinson, and they forced Asante Samuel to make a business decision in that game. And then again in this game, they went 13 personnel, lined up wing T formation, and then they are able to force Asante to make an open field tackle, which Doug Peterson apparently is very confident that Asante Samuel Jr. cannot make an open field tackle on a running back, and ETN was able to take it down to the 15-yard line. So and basically seal the game for the Jaguars. And then all they had to do is make the field goal, and Riley Patterson was able to do that for Jacksonville. So yeah, just an incredible game to be at and to witness. As I said earlier, it was the biggest comeback in the history of the team, and somehow I mean, I've been to 10 Jaguars games in my life, and the wins that happened, so 3 of the wins that I have witnessed, including this one against the Chargers, were all comeback victories. The 2014 game against the New York Giants, I think, yeah, that was they were down 21-0, and then they came back and won 25-24. And then earlier this year against the Oakland Raiders or Las Vegas Raiders, they went down 17-0, and then they came back to win 27-20. And then this game, of course, the Chargers. And then not only that, but I'm now 2-0 and witnessing home playoff games. I was there for the one against the Buffalo Bills back in 2018 that they won 10-3. So four of the biggest games ever in Jaguars history. Points or by situation I've witnessed. So that's pretty cool too. And we talked about the crowd and everything. It was a great crowd to be at. When Jacksonville has a winning team, when they have a competitive team that's expected to win, the fans to come out in full force and know how to make the place rocking and everything. It was booming. The the fans, even though it was like 40 degrees outside in Florida, which is, really cold for Florida. Even though it was like that, they were still out there. I thought people would start going home after the fifth turnover, but maybe they just went back into the concourse for a bit to try to warm up, and then they came back out the second half, and they were helping the team with all the cheering and noise making and everything. So that was great. Of course, mentioned my brother, Chargers fan. He went to the Jaguars, one of the bigger Jaguars tailgates that there is, and they singled them out there. They were like, "Oh, we got a Chargers fan here in the house," and they're pretty nice to him though. They just friendly jabs here and there throughout the game, throughout the tailgates. So I mean, nothing real serious or anything like that. Saw some stuff on Twitter. Some Chargers fans, I guess, were complaining about Jacksonville fans, but I don't know how many people that was or anything like that. But I mean, at least from our experience, no no issues or anything like that. So that was good. But this is all all good fun and everything. So we'll see now if we go out against the Chiefs and we're able to do it. I'm really interested to see, especially after they played the Chiefs earlier this year. They lost by 10, but when you look at it, it was actually a pretty close game. Just the Jaguars made some mistakes early on that had they capitalized on their opportunities would have been a closer game in that one. So they were really competitive in that one. So I think they'll be better on Saturday night, hopefully. So definitely looking forward to seeing that matchup and seeing how they can go up against the Chiefs and maybe they pull off the upset win. Right now they're, I think, 9-point underdogs to the Chiefs. So if you're trying to bet, I mean that might be a good payoff if if they win. So should be an interesting matchup, and we'll see how Trevor is able to go up against the defense if he gets pressured by the Chiefs, by Chris Jones, or if Patrick Mahomes is able to um, do what he wants with his will against the Jaguars, or if they put him into pressure and put him into mistakes. So, yeah, it should be interesting, and excited to see where this goes from here. If they can beat the Chiefs and go to the AFC Championship game against either the Bills or the Bengals, that would be pretty awesome.
That'll be the Sunday afternoon game, as I mentioned earlier. Uh, Jacksonville will be traveling to Arrowhead Saturday mid-afternoon game. Doug Peterson, a former player and coach for Andy Reid, will return to coach against Andy Reid again, and but this time in a playoff situation, so it's a little bit heavier than, of course, a few weeks ago when Jacksonville and Kansas City played. For the 49ers, it's more. Brock Purdy, more the whole entire offense kind of coming through and doing work. The defense being the best defense in the NFL, making the plays. Initially, they didn't have a lot going on. I mean, they were Niners were actually up 10 nothing, but then allowed 2 touchdowns in the second quarter. Geno Smith threw a 50-yard touchdown to DK Metcalf, who basically, for at least the first half, he had the number of Mooney Ward. Kenneth Walker was able to go and do work running. So it was in the first half, it was kind of nerve-wracking there. Seattle looked like they were making Brock Purdy nervous. Brock Purdy was missing some throws, and he looked ordinary. He looked like a rookie, and it was so then that's another touchdown, I guess, for the Cowgirls. They missed another. I guess they missed a 2-point conversion this time, or they didn't. I don't know. Why would they not go for an extra point there? But they're up 12-0. Niners ended up taking a 16-14 lead with Robbie Gould kicking a 46-yarder, and then Myers kicks a 56-yarder at the end of the half to take the lead in the halftime. However, in the third quarter, Brock Purdy started it out with a 75-yard, 15-play drive, ran it up the middle for a touchdown, and then the game changer, the fumble that happened for Seattle. After that, a quick touchdown, a punt, and then another touchdown, the pick, and a field goal. So at that point, 17 unanswered. Well, 24 unanswered, because 7, 14, 21, 24, and that was the or 25, because I did the 2-pointer. So there was, at least early in the game, it looked kind of iffy for Brock Purdy, and I guess in the end, when you're playing your first playoff game, can't really be mad at that. In the end, he came through, though. He played solid, and he did what he had to do. 18 of 30, 332, and 3 touchdowns. They were talking about it on the NFL Network game day morning, how Brock Purdy could end up breaking Kurt Warner's record for during his first playoff appearance, and the games that he played break the yards record, and Brock Purdy and other records he has, and Brock Purdy has a good chance to do that now that he'll more than likely, it looks like, play the Cowgirls unless something random happens. In terms of rushing, the combination of Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel were really tough on Seattle. They had no answer for either of them, really. Christian McCaffrey nearly 8 yards a carry. Deebo had carries early, averaged 10.7 yards, and then he got 133 yards and a touchdown on 6 receptions. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, 3 for 73, but his blocking on some of these runs played a big part. GK didn't end up getting a touchdown for the first time, I think, in weeks, which is crazy. Mitchell and McCaffrey get receiving touchdowns. So the third running back now, essentially, because if you considered Deebo a running back. Omenahu got that forced fumble, strip sack, and then Lenore got the pick later. And Greenlaw, 11 total tackles, 8 regular and 3 assists. Fred Warner had 5 tackles with an assist. Lenore 4 and 1. Mooney Ward He had 3 tackles, but he had some issues in coverage. Omenihu had 2 sacks. Bosa, somewhat quiet day, but because of his being out there, he makes a big difference, and that's the biggest problem for anybody that's going to play the Niners here in the next week or two, or however long this is going to go. The Niners had to recover. They were a little bit off, but it was nice. You needed to get hit in the mouth, go and get bloodied up a little bit. In the grand scheme of things, they are where they need to be, and they did what they had to do there. And now the Niners are on to play Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening against whoever, Dallas or Tampa Bay. And we'll see what happens with that as the rest of the evening goes on. But yeah, the Niners with the win there. I was really nervous after the first half, but that quickly changed. So hopefully that continues. Three more is my saying, or I've been counting down for that for I don't know how many weeks. Even when Jimmy was around, they were winning, and just have to keep it going for 3 more weeks or 3 more games, whatever. In regards to the rest of the playoff matchups, of course, we talked about Jacksonville. Buffalo had a sweat against Skylar Thompson and the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins probably lost that game more because of all the procedural penalties they had and delay of games and Mike McDaniel had a pretty solid year, especially when Tua was around, but it's not a good look the way he's going to go out this year, but we'll see what happens with that team and what if Tua will play next year or this. Buffalo gets away with one and will be hosting the Cincinnati Bengals, who had their latest bloodbath game against the Baltimore Ravens. One of the plays of the weekend, of course, was Tyler Huntley trying to reach the ball over the end zone line and instead getting it slapped out by Logan Wilson, or I think that, yeah. And Sam Hubbard picks the ball up and returns it 98 yards for a touchdown. I don't know who went and nailed Mark Andrews, or they didn't call the illegal block in the back there, but in the end, that was the game sealing play. Baltimore tried, and almost got there to tie it, but in the end, all the smoke and mirrors that is the Baltimore Ravens offense wasn't able to get the job done, and all those big names they have on defense and dirty tactics that they do, which is the Baltimore way, didn't work on Joe Burrow, even though Joe Burrow's offensive line is has more holes than Swiss cheese. So that is something to look at in that matchup with Buffalo, because they do have really good pass rushers. Not having, of course, why am I forgetting his name? What the heck? The guy that was the linebacker that they signed, the guy from Denver originally, and then he went to LA last year and won the Super Bowl.
Von Miller.
They traded Von Miller. Yeah, when he got hurt, they lost their big. Thank you. They lost a big piece, but they have Epinesa. They got interior linemen. They have a good pass rush. Leslie Frazier is one of the best coordinators in the league. The fact he hasn't gotten a second shot is more about the ownership in the NFL. He did a solid job in Minnesota. So it's a win for Buffalo because he's one of the best at what he does. And that's going to be an interesting matchup for sure. The Damar Hamlin situation, now that it's continuing to improve, Even though that the last time they played a few weeks ago, was what marred the whole entire game and whatever. Him being there is going to be great for Buffalo. There's going to be a lot of momentum. But Joe Burrow last year went to uh, he went to not Buffalo. He went to Tennessee, and then he went to Kansas City and won to get to the Super Bowl. And I think they won 3 games on the road to get to the Super Bowl. He's 4-1 now in the playoffs as a quarterback. They definitely do have offensive line issues, but Joe Cool sits in the pocket. He can throw darts to whether it's Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Boyd, the tight end there, Hayden Hurst. They got a great passing offense for sure. Running game is good, and then that defense is a scrappy defense. It's going to be a good game. That's good. I mean, obviously, I think that's what it was supposed to be the game of the year. We'll get that again. Hopefully, God willing, it'll actually go 60 minutes. We won't have any catastrophic incidents this time. And we'll see who gets there. If Jacksonville is able to go and beat Kermit the Frog, as Josh mentioned earlier, they would be whoever wins that game on Sunday afternoon would be hosting the AFC Championship game at 6:30 at night because the NFC Championship game will open the day there a couple weeks from now. And what is it? The Giants. That's the Giants getting through. I think a lot of people really figured that they were going to win that game. I mean, it was really close. Minnesota had opportunities for sure, but Brian Daboll essentially is locked up coach of the year. If he wasn't the coach of the year, he is now. But it's a regular season award. But to be fair, I think to go and take a dumpster fire of a roster and a team, him and Joe Shine or Schoen or whatever, to get them to the playoffs, make Daniel Jones look not like Dave Brown, and make him look like a serviceable quarterback, having guys that they're getting from FedEx to play wide receiver, and Isaiah Hodgins becoming a real. Been a absolute revelation. The guy is a player and a playmaker, and that's a huge piece for them. They have Bellinger, a tight end, of course, Saquon. It's going to be a problem there for Philly. Philly comes back after their week off. Jalen Hurts, it doesn't sound like, is at 100%, or will be 100% for the rest of the season. So he might be. Will he run the ball? That's a big question. If Jalen Hurts isn't running the ball, you lose a big piece of what makes the Philadelphia Eagles offense work, and in turn gives the Giants a break with the likes of Jalen Smith and their secondary not having to worry about the specter of Jalen Hurts running because of his shoulder. But that'll be the second game. That'll be the Saturday night game. The Giants going to Philly in the I-95 battle. But I guess Josh, we have those games there. What are your thoughts? I mean, we already know your thoughts on the Jacksonville game, but what are you looking at for the next 2 matchups that are definitely locked in, and more than likely it looks like Dallas will be going to San Francisco to renew a rivalry that's existed for many decades.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start, with the Giants and the Eagles. I think this game is going to be a little bit closer than what people think it might be. You talked about the Giants and the Vikings, and yeah, I had a feeling that the Giants would come out with that win. They're a lot more physical football team than the Vikings. The Vikings, they seem to do really well against teams that don't have good defense, or teams that are capable of being high scoring. But the Giants, they're not really like a powerful offense, but they have a tough physicality to them, and they were able to go out and defeat the Vikings. Despite Kirk Cousins and Jefferson, but the Giants now go up against the Eagles, and I think they'll be able to contain Jalen Hurts and shut down AJ Brown uh, and Devontae Smith. They've been really prolific, throughout the entire year. I mean, even when Jalen Hurts was out, they were still pretty productive with Gardner Minshew. Even though they didn't win, but Minshew and Hurts, they played pretty well. I think the key is really going to be if just stop the run, and stop the Eagles from being able to create running plays with the quarterback, and handoff plays, and just be able to keep the game close, and just make the plays that they make on offense, and rely on Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones, uh, continuing to play solid. He's been, picking up first downs on his legs a lot this year using read option, and it's going to probably take a lot of that for him to win. So that should be an interesting game. And the Giants, people kind of look at them and write them off, but I think they can come away with the an upset victory here on Saturday, and it should be an interesting matchup. The Bengals and the Bills, it's basically going to be the game that we were looking for, like you said back a couple weeks ago. Last Monday night game of the season. But kind of expect this one to be kind of a shootout. I think both teams have pretty high scoring, high potent offenses. The Bills, I think, they've got a really tough defense, so it's gonna be tough for the Bengals, but I think they can keep up with Buffalo, and I think Josh Allen. I think for them to win, it's got to limit the mistakes. Definitely, he's had a lot of turnovers this year, a lot of interceptions that shouldn't be happening, or other turnovers like fumbles and whatnot. So that's going to be a key for them to limit the mistakes, limit the opportunities for the Bengals to get back into the game. And like you said, the injuries for the Bengals, they've had a lot of issues with their offensive line, and Joe Burrow has been one of the most sacked quarterbacks in football so far to begin his playoff career. So that's going to be a factor there, is if the defensive line can put pressure on Joe Burrow and either sack him or force him into mistakes. And so that's going to be the two keys for those games, turnovers, and being able to affect the quarterback in that one. But should be interesting. It's gonna be very cold, and I think it's gonna come down to, who can run the ball the best, I think, in that game, really. And of course, the 49ers, they've been good on defense all year. I think if they play the Buccaneers, if somehow Tampa Bay comes back and wins this game against Dallas, uh, it's going to be interesting to see how they go up against a team that they faced before and got their faces destroyed by, with the 49ers, defeating the Buccaneers 35-7 all the way back in November. So that's going to be something that they're going to be thinking about a lot if they do win. But if the Cowboys win, it's going to be a good matchup, I think. The defense for the 49ers, they've been good, but can they stop Dak Prescott? Can they stop Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard from getting touchdowns, from being able to run? Cowboys defense has been pretty good too this year, so we'll see how they're able to affect Brock Purdy, and if they can make him make a lot of tight window throws and force him into mistakes. That's going to be something to watch for. But the 49ers do have a lot of weapons, of course. They got Debo Samuel, Kishner, and McCaffrey. They've got Brandon Ayuk, got George Kittle. So a lot of players on offense that you're gonna have to account for, that they can use in multiple ways to get them the football. So you look at that, and the 49ers, they could easily win this game if they do play against either team, and then see them against the NFC Championship. If the Giants win, that's a rematch and the 49ers win, that's a rematch of the 2012, I think, NFC Championship game. The one where they failed to advance to the Super Bowl, and the Giants just barely made it into the Super Bowl in 2011, I think. So yeah, that could be a rematch there, or they could head to Philadelphia in a battle of the 1 versus the 2 seed in the NFC. So definitely think that's going to be a good championship game if that ends up happening. Um, as for AFC, who obviously going to pick Jacksonville, and then I think the Bills Bengals game. We're gonna go with the Bengals here. I think they can stop Josh Allen and the rest of the Buffalo offense, but it's gonna be interesting. So, and then of course that would make the AFC Championship game basically a battle of the cats with the Jaguars if they win and the Bengals. So, gonna be an interesting matchup there, and should be fun to look forward to these divisional matchups this weekend, and we'll see how it all plays out.
Sorry, just going and checking on Instagram there. Just going and I'll go and swap. I would say Buffalo. I'll say Buffalo in that game for continuity's sake, and mainly because I can't stand Kermit the Frog. I want to see the Jaguars win. That would be good for the world. In terms of the first game, the Philly game, Giants have a shot. They do have a shot. They're a very scrappy team. It's the same narrative they had when they won those Super Bowls in the past. And, if Jalen Hurts, I honestly believe it's really all it's about Jalen Hurts and his willingness to run. If he's willing to run and take contact, it's going to be hard for the Giants to actually win. If he doesn't and he's one-dimensional, we've seen what happened with that at Alabama. We've seen that recently in recent weeks after his injury. But to be honest, Philly should win. Say Philly wins that one. I do, and the Niners need 3 more. And the Dallas Cowboys are more talk than they are they're a PR stunt more than an actual football franchise. And all these idiot sticks that are fan boys and girls of them. The fact of the matter is, let's see them actually have to win one in a big spot. It'll be the first time Dak Prescott's ever won a big game. But they say the people they were showing those stats of teams that have had double-digit win streaks going into the playoffs, they lose in the divisional round. So could go sideways there. I hope not, for my liver's sake. So yeah, we'll get into all those games and what happens next week on episode 153. As now Dallas is up 18-0. I guess they're allergic to kicking extra points.
Yeah, how does that happen? 3 missed extra points.
No, I think they went for 2 the second time. So, Maher's missed 1. Then Maher, he's just shanking everything right. He shanked 2 to the right. And then I don't know what the hell happened on that one. So yeah, he has missed 3 extra points. Wow. Good catch there, Josh. That is not good. And if he's having problems kicking in Tampa Bay, good luck trying to kick in Levi's. There's a reason why Robbie Gould is what he is, and he's played for as long as he has, especially for the 49ers. He's played on 2 really difficult fields. He played at Soldier Field for many years, and then came to the Niners. I think he was there when they were still a Candlestick. I might be wrong, but either way, Levi's is a tough stadium to kick in, especially when the winds are kicking up. So see what happens with that. Racing, we got to get into that. Of course, that's what the show's all about, really. And a big news story, the biggest news in during this off season. Kevin Harvick is announcing that 2023 will be his final year in the NASCAR Cup Series. The 2014 Cup Series champion, winner of 60 races in the Cup Series, and in terms of his overall, he has 121 wins, 47 Xfinity, 14 trucks. He's a champion owner in the Truck Series multiple times over with Ron Hornaday. He's everybody. There's the only person. There's only two people that are ahead of him. Of course, it's Mr. the King and Kyle Busch. Then behind him, David Pearson, Jeff Gordon, Durwood, Dale Sr., Mark Martin, Bobby Allison, and Jim Johnson, and Cale Yarborough, one win behind that. So he's in 11th. So, I mean, his stats really speak for itself. The contributions he's made to the sport are huge. Tony wanting him and basically saying, I want you to come over here because we're going to win a championship. I'm going to help you win this championship. And it happened. The fact that they haven't won more than one is kind of a shame. 2020, like the big glaring, elephant in the room when they had 9 wins and then basically imploded in the round of 8, and lost out on a chance to make Phoenix, which is one of his best racetracks. But 60 wins and being able to win at every major. I think he's won the old Winston Million. I think he won all the Winston Million races. And then if you add Indianapolis in there, he's won that one too, multiple times when it was still the Brickyard 400. Though he's one of the best ever in terms of that aspect. He's one of the best ever in this in the past 20 something years. And it's hard to replace somebody like that, Josh. And fundamentally, I don't know how they're going to do it. Stewart-Haas has relied on him for nearly a decade, and pressure is going to be on a lot of people, including one of his proteges and Ryan Preece, who's going to be driving the 41 car this year. Chase Briscoe, who, of course, is back for another year, having to learn and having to pick up his game so that he can actually be able to maybe take that next step in his career. But what are your thoughts on the announcement for Kevin Harvick? It sounds like he wants to be with his kids and his wife, and Chase keeling around Europe as he tries to be the new Max Verstappen, and Piper tries to be the next new female wonderkind in racing.
Yeah, I mean, for Kevin Harvick, I mean, he's a legendary driver in the sport, and he replaced Dale Earnhardt and had a lot of big moments early in his career. And then RCR, they fell off as a team, and then Harvick started to fall off. But then he made the move to Stewart-Haas, and then we kind of saw a lot of potential that he had, and that he hadn't realized, and he was able to win the championship in his first season with Stewart-Haas, and probably should have won way more championships than he did, because he only won one championship. You should have won the 2010 championship, especially if you go by the old points. He scored the most points in the 2010 season, the 2020 as well. Famously, I think that's the one that broke him, to be honest, because you look at how he did in 2020. He should have won that championship. Several races. He had 9 wins that year, and a big performance that year, and came down to basically Texas, basically screwing him over, and wasn't able to win to get in on the last race of the year, and should have been able to be there because he deserved that title in 2020, and then also look at his performance, in the 4 car. 2014. I mean, all the way through 2020. I mean, he was probably the best driver in NASCAR through that time. And you look at how his career played out. Uh, he won the Busch Series championship in 2001, and then also won the Cup Series Rookie of the Year, which I don't think anybody else has ever done that since then. So he's the only driver to be able to do that, and it's a pretty big achievement, especially considering the circumstances, replacing Dale Earnhardt, still competing on the Busch Series Tour full time, and that was back when there were way more events that were standalone for the Busch Series than there are now. And now, for Harvick, um, he's just been a legendary driver, and feel like maybe he doesn't have quite that status, but he deserves it. So that's something fans should consider, and you look at how he's performed with Stuart Haas and the amount of wins that they've gotten. It shows how dominant Stuart Haas was in their earlier days, uh, and then even lately, they've performed fairly well, and they could have been a contender in this past season's championship if some things had gone their way. They found speed late in the year and were able to put together a couple of wins. But he, like I said, with his championships, he should have won 2010, won the 2014, 2015 should have won that one. 16 should have won that one, and then I think 2018. If I look at the racing reference, oh yeah, racing reference has him second in the non-playoffs, but at least 4 championships for Kevin Harvick, I think, if you go by the old style. So that's pretty good company. I mean, you're right up there with Jeff Gordon, and all the Kel Yarborough, and uh, Jimmie Johnson. I mean, famously, with Jimmie Johnson, battled with him for a few years and during Johnson's title runs. So, he had a lot of success throughout his career, and I think his passion kind of went to the wayside, especially after 2020, and how title didn't happen for him, even though he had the best season that year, and I think kind of the grinds kind of begin to get pick up on him and everything, and now he's trying to get his kids involved in racing, and he wants to go out and be able to grow their careers and spend time with them and everything. So when you consider all of that, uh, he's been a legendary driver. 60 wins, 245 top fives, 430 top tens, only 31 poles, and then crazy amount of laps led, over almost 16,000 laps led. So just a lot of success throughout his career, and especially with him and Rodney Childers, that's a pretty good pairing of driver and crew chief that will be hard to live up to. And I think for Stuart Haas, they're going to lose a great driver and everything, and maybe this is it also for Rodney Childers. We don't know, but uh, both of them been pretty good for Stuart Haas, and essentially they're going to have to replace him. Uh, Eric Almirola in a few years will probably retire, even though he was supposed to retire after 22. So when you consider all of that, and basically in 2 seasons from now, Chase Briscoe is going to be the veteran driver of the 14 car, and the veteran driver for Stuart Haas Racing. So that quickly, a lot of turnover in Stuart Haas, and they've got a good driver in the 41 that could potentially replace Harvick, and they maybe either shut that one down or pick up another guy. But they've got a lot of replacements to look at, as far as if they want to keep 4 cars open. But Harvick, uh, earlier in his career, he was a very brash, very aggressive driver. and there's a lot of temper and a lot of that stuff. So there's some of that in his early career, but later career, became, especially after the stuff that happened in 2022, is able to kind of become a voice in the garage and someone that the um, drivers needed to be able to be the voice of the garage and express displeasure with issues. We saw with the cockpit fires and everything in 22 that he had this year. So he's a veteran presence, finally kind of grew into that. So, yeah, just a massive announcement, and hopefully he's able to go out and have a successful year, final year in 2023, and he's able to go out and grab a couple more victories, and solidify his legacy in the Cup Series.
Yeah, I mean, when we have these kind of announcements. It happened with Jeff Gordon when he decided to retire, albeit he did come back and race the '88 car for Junebug. Jimmie's retirement, after all that he accomplished, he kind of had fallen off at that point. Jeff was still pretty darn good, had made the Final Four. Tony was not competitive for the last few years of his career, of course, for plenty of reasons outside of the Cup car. Uh, they hired back Chad Johnston, which is mind-boggling to me, but because he sucks. But Kevin Harvick, I agree with you, Josh, on the fact that he's become a leader. He's become someone who is trying to look at the best things for the sport, and understanding what this next generation of drivers is going to have to deal with. And I mean, it probably Kurt Busch's situation probably played a piece, put a deal in there too. Getting hurt the way he did, and their contemporaries, and they ran against each other, Southwest Tour or whatever, in the trucks and all. And I think that probably was another piece. And that's probably where any number of pieces of why he's leaving. But this year, it's going to be cool to see some of the tributes, some of the things they give. ACS, who knows what's going to happen to that track? I'm sure they're going to give him something really cool. California guy, won there multiple times. Phoenix, because he's owned that place. What they'll do there, especially at the final race. And to be determined on that. I think he has one last run in him and Childers. I hope that Childers stays. I think he could move into a more of a leadership role, getting off the road, but they'd have to find somebody that could take over, and it would be kind of a fresh slate there at the 4 car, or maybe they renumber the thing or something. Who knows? But they have a lot of capital in that number. I mean, when it comes to who could take over, I mean, I think they were talking about Ryan Preece is one, because he's a Kevin Harvick management driver. There are other Kevin Harvick management drivers around, all around, and like Richard, but or there's a couple others, but I think him getting in the 41, depending on what he does this year, I don't believe they're keeping Custer down for more than a year. A lot of people are picking him to be a favorite for the Xfinity title. So even with having Chad Johnston as his crew chief, the notion of him moving, or no, Chad Johnston's going to be Preece's crew chief, so that could be an issue. But Custer, I think, will move right back to the 41 car as part of this deal. I think they're going to see what Ryan Preece can do. If he can do what they ask and what they expect, then he probably moves into that car. Now, of course, the other driver that I would think would be a pretty big favorite to contend for that car, or frankly any Ford seat, is Zane Smith. Front Row Motorsports has invested in Todd Gilliland, so they know one seat's taken there. Michael McDowell, whatever. I mean, he had his best year of his career last year. He did win a couple of years ago, somehow, some way, and won a Daytona 500. So he's been on kind of a upward swing. Now that Blake Harris left the team to go to Hendrick, will he have that same kind of performance in 2023? Would it make more sense for them to go run a full youth movement like they had a couple of years ago? They kind of ran with Busher and Landon Castle. And I think that wasn't a bad idea. The team just wasn't as good as they are now. I think they could possibly handle that. RFK, Brad is looking for somebody to build around. I think if you're a Ford team that isn't Penske, you need to look at Zane Smith as somebody that could do something here. I mean, I said the other rumor was that he would go and take over the 21 car. Now, that would also be a good one for the sport or for Ford, him going to the Wood Brothers. Personally, I got one better. Get Blaney back in the 21 with his whole crew, because that's where he should be, because he fit the 21 car, and put Zane Smith in the 12 car. They won't do it, but that would be the way that would be a marketing dream on both sides. And then Penske basically puts themselves, they cover both sides of it. They cover the fact that Blaney is a marketing, he's the most popular driver in the sport, really. Him and Bubba. I don't care what Clyde fans want to believe or some of these other people. They're the two most popular drivers in the sport. And when he was with the Wood Brothers, it was the vibe. Everything just fit. He hasn't been the same kind of guy since he went to the 12 car. I don't think he really likes to shave, even with the smoking hot girlfriend he has. I still don't think he likes to shave. He wouldn't have to if he drove for the Wood Brothers. Zane Smith looks like he's never grown facial hair, so he'd fit right in with the Penske thing. Gumby's the same way. So they'd have the youth movement. You have Pizza Face, who's now a two-time champion and is going to be the unquestioned leader of the Penske NASCAR operation. So those are just a couple people. There might be other ones out there. There's a lot of free agents coming up this year after this season. So, and if you consider what happened this past year between not just Tyler Reddick going and making his announcement with Denny, but then Kyle Busch ending up not having a ride because they wanted to put Keebler in the car because Joe Gibbs all of a sudden is cheap. He had no problem putting Barney Visser out of business and sending Cole Pern out of the NASCAR crew chiefing. He had no problem doing that, but he has a problem paying champions their fair share. He did it to Matt Kenseth, who's going to be inducted in the Hall of Fame this week, NASCAR Hall of Fame. Now he did it to Kyle Busch, and he's going to do it to Martin Truex Jr. after this year. And I would venture to say that probably would be for Sammy Smith, unless sponsorship came around, and maybe it'd be John Hunter. So lots to look at there. But I mean, Kevin Harvick leaving, it's a huge loss for the sport. Hopefully some of these young guys can kind of take a page from what he did in the past and do it and pick up the slack there. Jimmie Johnson, I mentioned the Legacy Motor Club, Legacy MC, random name. I mean, I guess the legacy part, of course, is Jimmy and Mr. the King because of the 14 Cup championships that they have combined. You know, Motor Club, it kind of goes with the whole GMS kind of deal, because when you think of Maury Gallagher, you thought of him in the ARCA series with his son Spencer. Then they went to the trucks. I think they ran Xfinity before Spencer got nailed for the drugs or whatever the hell. And then so they've been in all those series before they got to Cup this past year. Now Maury Gallagher has the Richard Petty piece. So if you want old school, you got that. You have new school with Jimmie Johnson. He's very motivated. It's become a thing now because now you have Denny Hamlin's involved in it. Justin Marks, albeit he wasn't a big time NASCAR driver, but he's a big time sports car driver, but a great businessman. Brad Keselowski going and deciding to leave Penske to go and pick up a piece of Roush Fenway. It's now the vogue thing. It looks like Jeff Gordon basically owns Hendrick Motorsports for all intents and purposes. That's why he left TV. So drivers are picking up Smoke, of course, Smoke, and when he decides to show up to Cup races, since he's more preoccupied with going NHRA races these days and driving SRX. But with the Legacy Motor Club, I mean, the name is not great. It's not the worst name. I don't think it's the worst name ever in with time. But I'm like, Tricon Garage was like the worst name, one of the worst names I've ever heard, and it's still a terrible name. But Legacy Motor Club is just as random. But we'll see what happens with that. He'll be driving the number 84 car, and it looked cool. Hopefully, they make that test. They make that little preview car. I would like one of those. The color scheme and everything looked really cool, but I doubt they'll make it. But we'll see what happens with that. Carvana, they're saying that is going to be the sponsor on his car for the 500 if he makes it, but Carvana's going through obviously
Yeah,
a
they've
lot
got
of
some
issues,
trouble.
along with a lot of the crypto involved sponsors. That's not only in Formula One, but also in NASCAR. There's issues with that. So we'll see what happens with Legacy Motor Club. Of course, they have Eric Jones in the 43 and Noah Gragson in the 42. Essentially, like being a rookie in his rookie year, even though he ran a lot of races last year, driving the 16 and driving the 62. What were your thoughts on the announcement before we move forward, Josh, on the whole Legacy Motor Club deal?
I mean, it's a weird name. That's not what I would envision Jimmie Johnson naming something. And if anything, I thought maybe they would just, Jimmie Johnson would just be PettyGMS Johnson or something like that. But they went with Legacy Motor Club, which somebody I forget where, but somebody said it sounds like a sports car team, like
Mm-hmm.
in IMSA, and that's kind of what it sounds like to me. But he goes with number 84, which is not surprising. Uh, obviously it'd be hard to get the number 48. 44. I guess they didn't want to go with 44 for whatever reason, because it would have definitely fit with the 42, 43, and 44. But
And ASA,
yeah,
that was the number he
yep,
ran
yep, that
as
too.
well.
And I mean, I think that was Kyle Petty's first number in NASCAR, when he or in ARCA with their. But
Yeah,
yeah, you have
yeah,
that.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, you have that. And of course, still sponsored by Carvana. And like you said, yeah, they've got a lot of problems now. They're in trouble, I think, financially, and they've got I think they've got the SEC on their backs right now. So we'll see how long they last. As a company, if they even make it through the year. And given how the condition of the economy is or could be, they may not last the entire year. So that'll be something to look out for in terms of sponsorship for Jimmie. But uh, Jimmie going to be attempting the 500 in this car, uh, and should be interesting. They've had some good runs. The GMS, with Eric Jones was up there in Talladega in the spring. He's gonna have Noah Gragson as a teammate. So, Gragson, of course, been good on super speedways and Xfinity for Junior Motorsports. So, it should be an interesting deal there with Jimmie in the 40, or I was about to say 48. So I'm so used to Jimmie in the 48 car, but Jimmie in the 84 car in Daytona. He's gonna have to make it in, but he might be able to fall back on points or the past champions provisional. So that could be in play if he needs it or if something happens. But it should be interesting, and now he's an owner in the series, so he's got equity in a way. So we'll see if he's able to have any influence in the garage, similar how Tony has some pull. If he has him, obviously he's been got a big target on his back after last season, but it's another former driver. Denny, of course, has a lot of influence now as an owner, so it's another former driver, maybe helping influence the sport to be better, and you know improve the future for for the series.
As the Cowboys drive again, looks like they're going to put another touchdown on the board. It's like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are completely shit in the bed today. Probably Tom Brady's last game as a Buccaneer too. So that'll be interesting. Um, yeah, it's not even 5 minutes into the third quarter, and they're probably going to put this one away unless something crazy happens. Like Tom Brady decides to do his best Trevor Lawrence impression and um, throw forward passes again that actually hit his own team. Uh, yeah, we'll see with that with Jimmie Johnson. There's news about him with the Garage 56. I mean, the rumors for a while have been, of course, Mike Rockenfeller who's testing the car. Jimmie Johnson and Jeff Gordon would be the three drivers of that car coming in and at Le Mans in June. So something to look at later on this year in regards to this Gen 7 car. I'm trying to. So the next piece of news is the fact that Travis Pastrana is going to run a third car at the Daytona 500. We don't know any details. We don't know a number. We don't know sponsors. We don't know any of that. So to be determined on all that. But Pastrana is who's an extreme motorcycle champion, Supercross 125 CC champion back in the day, as Dallas scores another touchdown. In there, I mean, he's made his name with the Nitro Circus and all these crazy jumps. He's a modern day Evil Knievel. I mean, with the passing, thoughts and condolences to the Knievel family, since Robbie Knievel just passed away a few days ago. I think Travis Pastrana kind of comes from that same. He's cut from that same cloth with all the stuff he's done on not only bikes but in cars, and also with the loss of Ken Block recently in the last couple of weeks ago. I mean, it's losing those big names in those daredevil extreme sports guys. It's kind of puts things in perspective, especially some of the injuries, some of the stuff that Pastrana's had happen to him. But he's going to go and try to attempt the Daytona 500, so that's something to look at. The 27 Hesselberg car supposedly is going to attempt the 500. What is his name? Mayweather's team, Money Team, supposedly will be there. Austin Hill will be attempting to run the 500 with the Beard Oil team. They're going to run all 4 super speedway races along with the Chicago street course and Michigan. And then I mean, they also have you have the 84 as we mentioned, and Trackhouse with Project 91. That's someone there. People are talking about Elio Castro Neves. It's either that car or the 50, and then you add the add the fact that Zane Smith is going to be driving a third car for Front Row Motorsports in a bunch of races, so that'll be somewhere there. I don't know what number or what that'll be. Probably will be 35 or something like that. One of them numbers that are in between. They have 34. They might just go 36. And that'll be an open car too. So it'll be, for the first time in a while, not only the qualifying but the dual races will actually have some level of interest. The dual races have become pretty monotonous in recent years, so that's nice to see for sure. And the open cars are going to be there's going to be some competitive pieces out there. Chandler Smith has announced Charge Me, which is an EV. It was founded in the EV. Yeah, so the clean energy kind of sponsorship there. So Zane Smith, of course, taking over the 16 from AJ Allmendinger in the Xfinity Series, while AJ goes to the Cup Series, and that'll be one of them. They got announcement DGM is going to have Josh Bilicki. He's going to run for them. He's also going to run for BJ McLeod. BJ McLeod brings Anthony Alfredo on to run the 78, and Garrett Smithley will be running the 99. Pat Tryson comes over to work with Anthony Alfredo, and Lee Leslie will be moving over to be the crew chief of the 99 car. Both of them have experience, of course, in the Cup Series. Pat Tryson did plenty of great work in the Cup Series over the years. So those are some of them. Dale Jr. is going to run Bristol. I guess he's going to run the Bristol night race.
Bristol night race, and probably Martinsville, I suspect. I don't know if he's going to run
be earlier in the Martinsville. They run twice, right? Or they only run once. Yeah,
no, they run both spring and fall. So I think spring Martinsville, and he's not going to run the fall one because the Cowboys just missed the fourth
championship one. Yeah, that'll be a championship. You know, that's a decider.
Yeah.
So I don't think he wants to.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to be one of the stories they mention as we go into Sunday's game. The fact that Brett Maher can't hit the side of a barn. What is it? Doug Randolph will come into crew chief for Tyler Ankrum. Scott Zipadelli had left Hattori Racing at the end of the year last year. So Doug Randolph, longtime veteran crew chief, will be there for Tyler Ankrum. I think we'll get more news in terms of the truck series as we go along now in this next month, because that's essentially we're a month or so away from the truck season starting. Was it Goodyear Tire Test at COTA going on? It went on today, and then it will go on tomorrow, with Kyle Busch driving for RCR, Tyler Reddick making his debut at 2311, and then Austin Cindric representing Ford for Team Penske at COTA. And they announced the tests there for the season. Trying to look at the different announcements. Renai goes in tankless water heaters, is going with Stewart Haas Racing. They're going to work with Chase Briscoe, and then they're going to also be on the NHRA TSR NHRA vehicles. So that'll be something to see how that all works out. I'm going to see that. Yeah, the other piece of news I guess we'll talk about before we move forward is Larson's announcement that he will be in the 2024 Indianapolis 500. It was a dream that Robin Miller had for many years, God rest his soul. to see Kyle Larson run this race. He will be racing in the 6 car that Tony Kanaan is going to be running this year, or I don't know what number actually, because the 6 would be Alexander Rossi, I would think, because he's the 3rd car now. So I don't know what number they're going to run for Tony Kanaan, but that'll be something to look at. Maybe he got 7-11. He can run the 11 again like he used to back in the day. But that 4th car will be Kyle Larson running at Indianapolis. He'll attempt the double. So that'll be the first time since Kurt Busch did it in 2014. Of course, he finished in the top 10 and won Rookie of the Year at Indy. His Coke 600 wasn't that good, though. Tony's still the only person ever to run all 1,100 miles. And he finished in the top 10 of both of those races, finished 3rd in the 600. Another turnover. Are you kidding me? Another turnover. Like, this is ridiculous. You've got to be kidding me. This is not even an NFL game anymore. Like, they're not even trying.
Can Tom Brady put up a goose egg in his final game as a Buccaneer, possibly?
No, that's the way he's looking. He's quitting. He's already rage quitting. He looks like how he looks when he plays golf. So yeah, I mean that was a big piece of news. The talent is undeniable. His ability to adapt to different race cars speaks to why he is where he is and all of the money he's made and all that. So I mean, we have a long time to talk about it. We have a long time to look at it, but on the face, I mean, Hendrick Motorsports is going to do the deal with with McLaren, with Zach Brown and them. So it's a good combination. It's a Chevy team. The McLaren team last year finished 2nd and I think 4th in the Indianapolis 500. Pato O'Ward had a chance to win the race last year. Probably didn't make the right moves there late against. Why am I? What the heck? Now I always have this freaking dementia kick in when I'm on air. He was running against what's his face who won the Indianapolis 500?
Marcus Ericsson.
Marcus Ericsson. There you go. Thank you. So and then Rosenquist was up there too. So and then also Juan Pablo Montoya, who was driving the 6 car, had a top 10 finish, and of course 2-time Indianapolis 500 winner. Now they're going to have a long-time Indianapolis specialist and 2013 Indianapolis 500 winner Tony Kanaan running this year, moving away from the Honda camp for the first time in a long time. So that's an interesting thing. Who knows if that'll be his last race. But I mean, it's a big news story. It's going to be something that they're going to talk about even this May because they're going to have problems filling the field. But, they're going to be talking about Kyle Larson showing up to Indy. What kind of prep is he going to do? How is he going to acclimate to running an Indy car with little to no testing and balancing that while also balancing being a full-time Cup Series driver? Of course, who knows what'll happen this year, but he will be. I know he wants to win another championship. Hendrick wants that championship back, albeit they've had the last 2 championships prior to this 22. But that announcement's huge. Has a crossover piece. And for a lot of people who have been hoping to see Kyle Larson do it, I mean, Jeff Gordon never did it. There's other guys that there are people hoped they would have done it, but haven't or couldn't, like Kyle Busch. So, I mean, in this case, to see Kyle Larson make that commitment and Hendrick Motorsports make that commitment is pretty big for the IndyCar series. considering all the L's they've been taking this offseason. Josh.
Yeah, I mean, for Larson, this is big, development and something that people been talking about for years. Even going back all the way back to 2016. He's even talked about then. I think he had a press conference with Scott Dixon, and because they were both sponsored by Target at the time, and even the possibility back then had been breached, and would have been really easy because he was driving for Chip Ganassi and could have, they probably could have worked something then to put him in an Indy car for the 500. But finally, he's gonna have a chance in 2024. So still got to wait a year and a half to go, to see it, but that's a lot of time in prep for him, and time to get in the simulator, time to get in a test, and he'll have the opportunity to have a private test at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and then of course have the at least the rookie orientation program before the testing for the month of May and all that stuff. So he's got a lot of opportunity, and I think it's a good announcement to make it now. And go for 2024 rather than 23 because gives you more time to prepare and put something together and actually dedicate focus into it and be able to just be able to run competitively rather than sitting around in the field, struggling with the car, struggling with the downforce, and being able to drive the car in the draft and be able to drive with the arrow push and the wake of other cars and having to adjust the wheel the weight jacker and everything. And he's, I mean, coming from a stock car, and he's got the oval, the dirt oval experience as well. So Larson, no stranger to open wheel cars, but never on this level. So it's going to take a lot of adjusting, and the fact that he's got a lot of time and preparation for this, should make him be viewed as a serious contender in 2024. So it should be interesting. Go back to what Kurt Busch was able to do, and if he had just had more prep and had more time, I think he would have done a whole lot better than. I mean, he had finished sixth in that race, but for Kurt, it was still a remarkable achievement, but he was never really in the race. He just was able to kind of get up there through attrition and through adjustments and everything. So if Larson's able to use all this time to prep, he could be up there, potentially leading if things go right, or be in the top five throughout the race. So that should be interesting to look out for. It's different from McLaren's partnership with Fernando Alonso. Of course, Alonso had already had open wheel experience in Formula One, so the transition's not as different as it is from a stock car to an Indy car. So um, it should be interesting to watch, and I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of fans that are excited for it and should draw a lot of interest in attendance for 2024. So, should be a fun Indy 500. When we are able to see it in 2024 and everything, and looking forward to seeing what Young Money is able to do in an Indy car. So, it's a good partnership though with Hendrick and McLaren, and yeah, it was looking around, about the potential for this, and of course they been talking with Kyle Busch as well, but Kyle couldn't get anything put together. But they were able to put something together for Larson, and Larson's in the prime of his career, and it sounds like from what he's talking about this opportunity, he wants to be able to do multiple years, not just one and done year, but he wants to be able to compete in multiple occasions of the Indy 500. So that's going to be something to look out for in the future. Is him being able to potentially do maybe 3 or 4 attempts at the Indy 500 or something like that. So we'll see, if he's able to qualify in for this first attempt in 2024, and how he's able to do in the actual race. So looking forward to that. But I mean, it could have been this year, but I think with the way things work out, it's better if you give yourself more time to prepare.
Yeah, and I think it'll also put them. He'll be able to get in a simulator, get sim time, and also he'll be able to go to Indy, watch Tony Kanaan, watch the team, Alexander Rossi, of course, the former Indy 500 champion, um, and then Pat O'Ward, who finished second there, as I mentioned last year, Rosenquist. So it would be a good deal for him to go and get that understanding, probably go and see how that, because I'm trying to figure out if they have, I think the qualifying weekend is the same weekend as All-Star weekend for at North Wilkesboro. So he could go out for practice days and then fly back to Wilkesboro to run in the All-Star race. So WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, we'll get into that. The recap, the last season for the DPIs, that was it was a competitive battle with basically three manufacturers for a while, but it ended up being it was really Acura and Cadillac in the end this past year. So you had Cadillac with was Chip Ganassi Racing, and then Whelen Engineering Racing, which was Action Express running the Cadillacs, and then you had JDC Miller Motorsports running a customer car, along with Jimmie Johnson running limited races, Endurance Cup with his driver lineup. Both, or was it Mike Rockenfeller, Kamui Kobayashi, and then Jose Maria Lopez. And then the two Acuras, Konica Minolta, Wayne Taylor Racing, which was Ricky Taylor, Philippe Albuquerque, and then the defending series champions. And then they had Meyer Shank Racing, which was Tom Blomqvist and Oliver Jarvis. They had Elio Castro Neves and Simon Pagino for the Rolex in that race. So, I mean, Wayne Taylor Racing Team, they won the qualifying race, but in the actual Rolex 24, Meyer Shank Racing Team took the victory. From there, the Ganassi Cadillac Team won Sebring with Earl Bamba, Alex Lynn and Neil Yanni, and then Long Beach with Bourdais and Van der Zande. The Konica Minolta Team then won three of the next four races: Laguna, Mid-Ohio, and Watkins Glen at the 6 hour, with the 01 car winning at Belle Isle. They also won at Mosport. Ricky Taylor then won again, or Albuquerque won again at Road America, but were not able to fade Meyer Shank at Road Atlanta in the Petit Le Mans, which essentially locked up the championship for them. They win the championship by under 100 points over their Acura teammates of sorts, and they tie for the Michelin Endurance Cup, but because of winning two of the Enduros, they go and get the Michelin Endurance Cup. Blomqvist and Jarvis, of course. Ollie Jarvis is not going to run this year for the 60 car for whatever reason. I guess the way contracts were working. He had ended up signing a deal with United Autosport to run in the World Endurance Championship, so he won't be back. Colin Brown will be in that car, driving with Tom Blomqvist here to see if they can go and win the Rolex 24 again. And of course, Albuquerque and Taylor are back with the new cars. Bourdais and Van der Zande are gonna run the one Cadillac racing Chip Ganassi car in the IMSA series this year. Lynn and Bamber will be going to the World Endurance Championship. The 31 car will be back, of course, with Pippo Durrani and Alexander Sims, the former BMW factory driver. JDC Miller Motorsports is waiting on their customer Porsche 963, so they'll be waiting until later in the year, so they won't be in contention for the championship. But in terms of the LMP2, the Michelin Endurance Cup was won by PR1 Matheson, which was Ben Keating, who's now driving the Corvette for GT-AM in the World Endurance Championship. At the Rolex, Pat O'Ward, Colton Herta, Eric Lux, and Devlin DeFrancesco won for Dragon Speed. So that was a solid driver lineup there. PR1 Matheson won again. They won the sprint race, whatever the qualifying race, then they won Sebring. Tower Motorsport won at Laguna Seca. Dragon Speed won their second race of the year with their regular lineup of Henrik Hedman and Juan Pablo Montoya. Watkins Glen, the 52 wins. Era Motorsports wins that Road America, and the Tower Motorsport team wins the Petit Le Mans. In LMP2, John Ferrano wins the overall championship for LMP2. Michelin Endurance Challenge, the 52 car, wins that because they won 3 of the 4 Enduros. So that's that there. We'll get into some of the drivers, where they're at next week. In terms of LMP3, mentioned Colin Brown before. He has raced for what is it called? The Core Auto Sport for many years with John Bennett, and they were running LMP3. They ended up winning the overall championship, but Gar Robinson, Felipe Fraga, and Kay Van Berlo, with their 2 of them had won 3 of the 3 races, both the Rolex 24 and the 6 hours. And then Elkhart Lake, it was Fraga and Gar Robinson won there, but that isn't an Enduro. Michelin Endurance Cup, they get the win there in the 74 Riley Motorsports car. When it comes to Core Auto Sport closed, which was part of what led to Colin Brown being a free agent, being able to go and move into what is the LMDH category after many years driving in different categories. They ran in the DPI category with a Nissan. They won races there. Colin Brown's very experienced. John Bennett was a great gentleman driver, run a great race team. Porsche trusted him to run their factory program. So it tells you how good of a team they had. So it'll be a big loss in that sense. In the GT Daytona Pro category, Matt Campbell, Matthew Jaminet, both are involved in the Penske Porsche 963 program now. They won 5 races and won the championship by over 200 points over Ben Barnicoat, who drives for Lexus. Antonio Garcia, and Jordan Taylor finished 3rd. In terms of the Michelin Endurance Challenge, Davide Rigon and Daniel Serra got the victory without even winning one of the Enduros. They finished 2nd in 2 and finished 7th at Road Atlanta, finished 9th at Sebring. And when you look at the Pfaff Motorsports team that won the regular championship, 1st at Daytona, 5th at Sebring, 3rd at Watkins Glen, and 3rd at Road Atlanta. So I don't know how the points didn't. I guess the small points didn't go in their favor there. But Fast Motorsports will be back this year with different drivers. Lexus team is going to be back. Corvette is going to run one car here, and of course in the GT AM category in the World Endurance Championship, you had the Roscon, Alex Ribero's Harder Racing Aston Martin team. They'll be back again. Connor D. Filippi and John Edwards driving for Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan. They are going to be involved with their LMDH program that they're bringing to the table here, starting at the Rolex 24. Cooper McNeil's going to go and take. He's going to get out of the seat, be more involved in the business of WeatherTech versus being a driver. So that they've hired a couple of pros there at the Mercedes, and they'll be in the GT Pro category this year. The last class to go over is GT Daytona regular, the Pro-Am class. Roman DeAngelis for the Harder Racing won the championship, wins at Watkins Glen and Mosport, along with second places at Belle Isle, Lime Rock, and VIR, led to that championship, getting the regular championship won by 23 points over Ryan Hardwick and Jan Halen with the Wright Motorsports Porsche program. The Brian Sellers, Madison Snow from Paul Miller Racing BMW, of course, from New Jersey, wins. They won the WeatherTech Sprint Cup, so that was a good deal for them. They missed the first two. They missed Daytona, so that's why they weren't involved in the regular championship. I mean, they finished sixth in the overall championship, even with missing Daytona altogether. But they won that Sprint Cup. And the Michelin Endurance Challenge saw Brendan Uribe, Jordan Pepper win with their McLaren, win the Michelin Endurance Cup. So good job for them. They're running full time this year in that with that McLaren program. So that'll be something to see on GTD. Lots of variety, lots of things to see. More cars in what will be the main class, which will be now the LMDH or the GTP category here in the IMSA series. LMP2 is going to be capped depending on the race, but will be competitive, and they have a chance to win overall with the way that some of the reliability has gone. But we'll get more into that next week. The roundup, we go into the Chili Bowl. For last week, we had the Chili Bowl, and Logan Seavey won from the pole after winning the pole shootout, and that's he goes and wins, and he wins for what's that called? For what is that? For Swindell Speed Lab. So, and beats defending champion Tanner Thorson. So that was a big deal. Survived green white checkered, 37th running of the race. So that's a big deal for them. I mean, Swindell back now, yeah, owns 4 drillers as a driver, first as an owner. So challenging when Cannon McIntosh was there, right, racing him, and he passed him on lap 31. So to go and take the win, and then the Tanner Thorson trying to repeat. Unfortunately, because of the groove and the way that the track was, he wasn't able to be able to get around him. So that's a shame there. The other thing that lost first ever award for being the highest finishing female in the race. Top rookie Jade Avedijian was one of three women drivers that made the A main. Rico Abreu got pushed back and got into a wreck. He had a chance. He had won his prelim night last Wednesday, but unfortunately didn't have luck on his side to go and get that third driller. There was the crazy accident that saw Ashton Torgerson get ejected out of his car. Thankfully, not severely injured, but he was able to get back to the racetrack on Saturday night and talk to the fans. So that's a big deal, considering how the safety and all of that. But I mean, it's crazy to think he's been discharged out of the hospital after that crazy accident. The two big missing pieces were Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell. They basically said they weren't going to race because of the purse for the race, because it's too low. It's only $10,000 to win, and the engine contract or whatever to lease an engine is way more than that. So unfortunately, that's what I think probably one piece of why they weren't there. It's when you consider how many drillers they've won between the two of them, it's a big loss for the race, big loss PR wise as well. Logan Seavey wins over defending champion Tanner Thorson. Cannon McIntosh third, Shane Golobic fourth, Emerson Axum fifth, Kyle Jones sixth from 16th, Mitchell Moles seventh, Trey Marcham eighth, Tim Buckwalter from 23rd, ninth. Justin Grant finished 10th. Former Chili Bowl champion Tim McCready finished 11th from the bump from the 24th spot. You had other people there: Chris Wyndham, Dason Pursley, Zeb Wise, Kevin Thomas Jr., Thomas Meserol, Jade Avedijian. She one of two. Sorry, I said there was three women. There's two women. Jade Avedijian and Kaylee Bryson made the show there. CV led the most laps in the race. McIntosh took the lead for in that middle portion. And the B features Chase Briscoe has made the A main previously, had a chance to make it, bicycled late, and fell out, finished 10th in his B feature top 7 advance. So he finished 10th, fell short. And then you look at Tim Buckwalter, who got in on the last row and moved up to 9th at the end. Taylor Reimer, another female driver driving for Keith Kunz Motorsports, had a chance but had issues in her race. Trying to look at other people. Yeah, Darren Pittman, former World of Outlaws champion, fell one spot short of making the A in his B feature. Trying to go with Blake Hahn, who's a former A main driver and plenty of golden drillers. I mean, the family runs the race, of course. Buried. I'm trying to look for Buddy Kofoid, because he had issues in his preliminary night and got buried in the soup. Didn't even make the C. Let's see here. Mariah Ide, another female driver. So, I mean, the women are starting to make their presence felt in this race, which is great to see, especially when you think about the way things are, hopefully for female drivers, more opportunities coming from that. So, yeah, Buddy Kofoid ended up getting out of, he was in the D. Okay, so he was in the D feature. He was 13th, needed to get into the top 5, finished 18th in last. And so guy who was a favorite coming into the weekend, 2-time defending USAC midget champion, gets knocked out in the D because of a bad preliminary night. So that shows what the series, what happens in the Chili Bowl if you are not fortunate, if you have something go wrong. Let's get into Dakar Rally. As I mentioned earlier, Nasser Al-Attiyah basically had won the race in the first week because everybody else that was around him had issues. So that basically ended everything there. He ended up winning so I don't know what that is. Ultimate Prototype. There was only one of the Ultimate Prototype cross country, the T. Yeah, so okay, I can't even. It's too long of a list. And only one of the 3 Audis finished. Matthias Ekstrom and his co-driver, his 2 teammates, of course, Carlos Sainz, former winner of the Dakar Rally, and Stefan Petterhansel, who's won so many Dakars. Both of them fell out with issues, crashes, and the whole bit. Nasser Al-Attiyah won by 1 hour, 20 minutes over Sebastian Loeb, who won the last 6 stages on the trot to move up from wherever the heck he had been to get into second overall in the car category. Lucas Marias in another Toyota Hilux or whatever finished third. Janelle de Villiers, former multiple-time winner of the race, finished fourth. The second factory Toyota, and then the third factory car, Hank Ladigan, finishes fifth. Trying to look through here. Anybody else of great significance? No. On the trying to go through here, see if anything. The bike category was where those Americans that were in contention. Skylar House on a Husqvarna was in contention, had the lead late in the race, but had issues in the last couple of stages and ends up finishing third behind Kevin Benavides and Toby Price, both former winners of this race. Pablo Quintanilla and Adrian Van Beverlen for Monster Energy Honda pick up the slack with what do you call why am I forgetting his? Of course, I'm forgetting his name now. Ricky Brabeck had a huge accident early in the race and got knocked out of it. Or he had a great chance. He had a lot of speed early on, but got knocked out before we really could tell if he could have won another one. In the we got prototype cross country. U.S. drivers finished first and second. Austin Jones and over his teammate Seth Quintero, a Red Bull Off-Road Junior team. 52 minutes, but U.S. driver gets a win there in the what is this? What car category? The lightweight prototype cross country. Then you have Christina Gutierrez, who's the Extreme E co-champion, finishes fourth for X44 Racing. So that's a good job by her. Trying to see if there's any. Yeah, no, that probably, I don't know who any of that is. We'll get in the quads. Pablo Copetti, a U.S. rider on a quad, finished third in class. No credit to him. Trying to look through others. Yeah, we did that. T4, they separated them. Okay. And then, so that's the end there. Of course, talked about Nasser Al-Attiyah. So they have a series where they run Rally Raid Championship. So there are other events that'll be going on as the year goes on. I figure Sebastian Loeb will be running World Rally Championship, not this coming weekend, but as the season goes on as well. And Mexico City Formula E, first race of the 2023 season, took place at Hermanos Rodriguez. Spine fracture. Jeez, that's bad. Stingray Rob. Okay, there you go. We'll put that out there. Stingray Rob, set to be confirmed at Dale Coyne Racing to be a full-time driver in the 51 car. Stingray and talented Formula 2 runner-up. Really good. Fastest Schwartzman. Bobby Schwartzman has a better resume, driving a bigger team, allegedly, but our old one, and we're just 400ths off. Yeah. So, that's a Kiffin Simpson, Penske and Dane Cameron. So, Stingray Rob that'll be one of the youngest teams in the series with himself and David Malukas coming back. So that'll be an interesting combination. In terms of what I was talking about prior to seeing that news, they had the first race, of course, and the results. We'll get into the results there. Jake Dennis for Andretti Autosport gets the victory over Pascal Wehrlein for Porsche. Lucas de Grassi in his debut for Mahindra finishes third. Andre Lauderer in his first race for Andretti, Porsche factory driver, finishes fourth. Jake Hughes in the first race for McLaren, fifth. The Envision team, which is they're an Audi customer. I forget who their customer now, but Sebastian Buemi, I guess they're Nissan then, maybe. Sixth. Antonio Felix da Costa for Porsche, seventh. Mitch Evans, eighth. Nick Cassidy for Envision, ninth. And defending world champion Stoffel Van Dorn for Dragon Maserati, or the Dragon DS team, finishes 10th. And in terms of the grid, I mean, from the race, deGrassi had qualified on pole over Jake Dennis, Jake Hughes, Andre Lauderer, Dick Tantrum, Wehrlein, Buemi, Sasha Fenitraz for Nissan Edams, Antonio Felix da Costa, Mitch Evans. So there was that. The next race will be in a couple weeks' time in Saudi, in Diriyah, for a doubleheader. And then after that will be the first race in India in a while. But this will be first Formula E race. Will be in Hyderabad. So that'll be something to look at as things go on. Yeah, so Andretti Autosport, Envision has Jaguar. Okay, so Jaguar Power Unit's my fault. DS Penske they have their whatever power unit. Two Jaguars. Mahindra is with them, their own team in Apt. Maserati, they're by themselves. Then you have Neo, takes care of themselves. Nissan, Edams goes and runs their own program, and then also sends a power unit over for McLaren. Alrighty then. The Rally Monte Carlo coming up this weekend. Famous race, of course. Everyone wants to win that race. That is involved in that series. News, I mean, Ford shows off their new M Sport shows off their new WRC car, the Ford Puma, with former world champion Otanek and Pierre-Louis Loubet as the full-time drivers, and then they'll have a third car in there, which is where Sebastian Loeb might jump in. That's a good-looking piece. Will it compete is the big thing against Toyota and Hyundai. You look at the drivers coming back. Right now, you have defending world champion Kalle Rovanperä, only age 22, which is just insane. He will be, his teammates will be, Alfred Evans, Takamoto Katsuda, former multiple-time world champion Sebastian Ogier will be running a limited schedule there. Esa-Pekka Lappi, Otanek, I just said, Thierry Neuville, and Craig Breen will be running, or Lappi and Neuville run the full season. Sordo and Breen will be running limited races in a third car. I mentioned the two Ford drivers there. We'll see if Rovanperä can go and win at Monte Carlo. Last year, of course, it was a great battle between Loeb and Ogier to see who won that first race with this new Rally 1 configuration. Roar before the 24's last piece, we'll get into the sim segment. A full field, all 61 cars that'll be racing in the Rolex 24 will be represented. You have there's 25 cars in GT Daytona. There'll be 8 in GTD Pro, 9 in LMP3, 10 in LMP2, and 9 in GTP. 2 Cadillacs, the only time that the Ganassi Cadillac team will run 2 cars this year. The 01 will be committed for the full season here. And then the 02 with Bamber, Lynn, and Westbrook will run in the World Endurance Championship. Matthew Jaminet, Nick Tandy in the 6 car are the full season drivers. Matt Campbell and Felipe Nasr will be the full season drivers in the 7. Dane Cameron, Michael Christensen will race in the World Endurance Championship. In the 3rd Penske Porsche Konica Minolta Acura team will have Ricky Taylor, Philippe Albuquerque, the regular drivers, Louis Delatraz, and Brendan Hartley. BMW M Team RLL. The 24 will have Philip Bang, Augusto Farfus, Marco Whitman, and Colton Herta. 25, Connor D. Filippi, Nick Yaloy, Sheldon Vanderlinde. They have Colton in both cars, so I guess they only have 7. The 31, Whelen Engineering Cadillac, sees Pippo Durrani, Alexander Sims, as I mentioned prior, and then Jack Aitken will be their 3rd driver. And then the 60 car, Blomqvist and Braun, along with the Meyer Shank IndyCar duo of Elio Castro-Neves and Simon Pagenaud. We'll get more into some of these other cars and teams in detail after this race, this weekend. The Tower Motorsports 8 car will have Scott McLaughlin and Joseph Newgarden. That'll be an interesting combination. Era Motorsport has Ryan Dial and Oliver Jarvis in the 18 car, so that's a good combination. TDS Racing has Rinus VK in there. Then you have, the 51 Rick Ware Racing team will be running full-time with Eric Lux and Pietro Fittipaldi, so that'll be one to watch. And then the PR1 Matheson team, not sure what their plans are past Daytona. Ben Keating will race with Nicolas Lapierre, amongst others there. So we'll get into that with GT Pro. There's 1 Lexus, 1 Corvette, 1 Porsche, 2 Aston Martins, the TGM TF Sport number 64 in the Heart of Racing 23, Ferrari Risi Competizione, Ferrari Iron Lynx, Lamborghini with Roman Grosjean. That crew is basically four of the drivers that are likely to be in their new Lamborghini LMDH slash GTP car, and their whole program they're going to be running starting in 2024. WeatherTech Racing with their Mercedes they don't have a full lineup in there, but I think they've made mention of some of the drivers that they're going to have running the car anyway, so that'll be something to get into more. And then, of course, 25 entries in GTD, so spend more time on that next week. Josh, let's get to you in the sim segment. There's controversy in the 24 Hours of Le Mans virtual race. There's been other things going on in the sim world. So let us know what is going on.
Yeah, I mean, start with the controversy with the Max Verstappen and really just the 24 hours of virtual Le Mans. And the issues were basically that the virtual Le Mans was running, and then Verstappen took the lead at the start of the race, but then there was a red flag because uh, there was a security breach in a couple of the servers that were used for the race, and then drivers were being disconnected due to the instabilities on the server. And then Verstappen got kicked from the game, and then he rejoined a lap and a half down from the lead to 17th. And then just more connection issues throughout, and then Verstappen just retired and quit the game. And then uh, they called it. He said it was bad luck, and uh, you know, not just bad luck, but incompetence by the organizers, and just a lot of issues that seem to have come about in this event. And it's something that shouldn't come up in big sim racing event, and a lot of people spend months and months of preparation for this, even though it's just a video game. A lot of It's a highly competitive event, and a lot of top real world drivers come out and compete in this game. And when things like this happen, it's very frustrating, and very uh you know very bad to have take place. And I just think that they organizers need to do a better job of keeping their servers secure, and keeping their servers up to date, and being able to host a competent event. And this group hosting this event, they're using R Factor 2, but it's Motorsports Games that is hosting the event. And we've seen the controversy with Motorsports Games and other games. Obviously, the iRacing IndyCar deal, the NASCAR console deal from last year, which is really bad, or in 2021, which is just a really poor game. And now we have this latest thing. And the champion of the two-time back-to-back world champion in Formula One's basically, and he's a huge sim racer as well, going out and trashing the I mean, he's right, he trashed the game. I mean, I agree with him 100% on this. And that's on the organizers to provide a environment that doesn't have these issues. And a lot of people were having these issues. And I found out on Reddit, actually, that it looks like the basically the servers, the IP address was actually publicly visible, and was allowed to leak the race server IP, and that's probably what led to the overflow and not being able to handle the amount of traffic, and those people getting disconnected and stuff. So uh, and not only was it leaked, but it looks like I guess within the game, the IP address was visible, so it was easy to look at and see that and cause problems. So yeah, Motorsports Games, just continuing to be incompetent. It seems like it's just a complete scam of a company. And they make all these deals with um, all these racing organizations and, you know, put out bad product consistently. And I had no idea how they're even still in business or anything. And, they shouldn't be in business if they are. So just a poor execution and, just more bad PR. Not everybody was mad about it. I mean, Roman Grosjean, I think, was successful and therefore but then should also know that um, he also has paid interest in motorsports games, and I think he's like a partner or something with them. So take that uh, defense with a grain of salt there, with his defense of how they handled the whole thing. Um, Jimmy Broadbent, I haven't seen what he had to say, but I think he was also not happy with it. So just a lot of people on sim racing community not happy about this situation. And now even there's more news that's come out related to this. I guess, like, they've had trouble paying their developers motorsports games, and some of the developers are threatening to publicly release source code for the video games that have been unfinished, which includes the iRacing IndyCar game, or the IndyCar game from Motorsports Games. Um, so that's one of the things, and I'm all for it. Drop the source code on GitHub or something like that, and let everybody have a crack at it and see what it looks like. See how poorly coded it is, or what issues there are with it. Maybe somebody can go and remake the game themselves and create a new game or improved game or whatever. So I'm all for it, honestly, and go ahead and drop it and show how bad of a product that they have and everything. So that's the controversy there, and just unfortunate that they have this issues and shouldn't exist. And if anything proves why, I mean, at the very least, iRacing would never have these problems. I think. I mean, they're not perfect, but I don't think they'd have this type of incompetence that Motorsports Games has had, and it just shows there's a lot of problems with it and everything. And I mean, there are other people who can explain it better than me, but it's just from what I've seen and um, from what I know. So it's just a better, or it's a just a bad situation that um, shouldn't happen. And when you piss off the you know best driver in racing right now in terms of results, that's not a good thing. And people media might say that oh, he's just whining, like rage quitting, whining like a baby, but no, it's not that at all. I mean, I think there are legitimate complaints, and I think if there are other professionals out there competing in this, I think they'd be pretty close to the same thing. And I think the sim racing community seems to be pretty much united in the opinion about this situation. So I think it's clearly a issue of incompetence on the side of the organizers. But yeah, I mean, that's basically the big news. Unfortunately, it's bad news in sim racing this week. But I mean, as far as iRacing, I mean, I ran some the Toyota GR86. I was practicing with that on Laguna Seca, and was really able to get a handle on the car. So I think I'm gonna run that one a lot this year. Also in iRacing, the Roar before the 24 for iRacing's 24 hours of Daytona was also in this past weekend. And if I wasn't at the Jaguars game, probably would have tried to participate in that. Um, as I think I was during the daytime on Saturday, Sunday, so was not around my PC during that time, so didn't do that, but would have liked to, I guess. Then next weekend is the actual iRacing 24 hours of Daytona, and that should be an interesting event. Actually, won't be in that one. I'll be at Universal Studios with some friends. Already made these plans months ago, so a little bit of conflict there, but that's all right, and everything. So, um, trying to think, trying to think if there's anything else in racing news and sim on the sim side. Um, I think that's mostly it for sim segment. I'll look here on Sim Racing Reddit and see if there's any other interesting articles. Uh, Real quick, yeah. Uh, yeah, I think just that controversy with Sim and with the virtual Le Mans, which is an unfortunate situation. That's pretty much all the news there. So Yeah, maybe IndyCar will figure out a way to get back with iRacing soon or anything, but just a bad contract all around, bad situation on all of that, and motorsports games gotta pay for their sins eventually, I guess. So we'll see. But when I do streams, I do plan to stream eventually. Just kind of busy right now, so um, I will be streaming eventually at Twitch TV/usailor2. Uh, yeah, go on my iRacing streams there and watch and everything, and see all the stuff that I do for racing when I'm on there, and when I'm on there, it'll be a good race, hopefully. And go on there and follow, and I'll make sure to notify when I go live on there. And then, of course, Twitter, JP Huffine, see all my stuff there, and see all the talk that I had about the Jaguars this weekend, and we'll continue to have as we go forward this next week for Jacksonville football and everything, and hopefully they win and continue the good results and good content. As always, the Jags, as they've been saying. So, uh, yeah, and of course you can go on here and watch our videos and see our stuff on YouTube. And we had our last one with 908 uploaded on there, and um, good discussion with him. And if he wants to come back on, looking forward to whenever that is, if he wants to. But that was a good video there. Go in there and watch our YouTube stuff, and subscribe to our page, and like our videos, and um, give us feedback on our videos and all our content and everything if you want to watch on the video side. So yeah, that's all for me this week on sim racing and everything else. So turn over to you, Phil, for the rest of the close.
Yeah, as Tampa Bay gets sent out of the playoffs, down 31-6. The Cowgirls will play the 49ers on Sunday evening for a chance to get to the NFC Championship game. So that means three NFC East teams, the three NFC East teams that made the playoffs are still in the playoffs. It shows, I guess, that was the division this year. The North was garbage. The South was garbage, and both of those division winners are gone. And then, of course, the 49ers imposed their will. They'll be there. You can follow me at Philip G. Matthew on Twitter. You follow us at Gripstrip Pod on Twitter. You can find the Gripstrip Podcast anywhere. Basically, you can hear podcasts. And Josh mentioned the YouTube page, of course, Gripstrip Podcast on YouTube, where you upload the videos. So we'll get into all that, have the show out here later in the week, sometime during the week, and hopefully listen to it prior to the divisional round of the playoffs and some of the other racing events that are taking place this weekend. But otherwise, we will see you again next week for episode 153 of the Gripstrip Podcast, which will go over the Roar for the 24, preview the Daytona Rolex 24 at Daytona, and other racing, or be Formula E in Saudi as well. So we'll get into that. We'll also get into anything else that's going on, any other news that's going on in the world of motorsports. So with that, for Josh, I'm Phil. Thanks for listening to Gripstrip Podcast and supporting us. Of course, we're always open to feedback and trying to improve the show and coming up with guests. So coming up with guests. Trying to work on some people to get on the show. So we'll see how that works out there. And we will see you again next week for the Gripstrip Podcast. So take care. Be nice to one another. God bless, and goodbye.